For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30-odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to 30-odd Minutes. It's great to be here with you. I'm Jeff Belanger, and we are oddballs. You are oddballs for watching this. We don't think any less of you, though. Thanks. Tonight, this is a great show. First of all, shot in definition. Not so much high definition. We're working on that, but definition. And this is a great show because this is a subject that's interested me my entire life. It's part of the reason I'm a paranormal guy today is because Mom and Dad bought me a Ouija board when I was a wee little boy. And we would take it to overnight sleepovers in alleged haunted houses, try to make contact, and we're going to be talking about all that stuff tonight. Want to remind you, if you're watching the show live at 30oddminutes.com, jump in our chat room because tonight is a special night. We got a whole crew of people, check this out, watching. Not only do we have Rob watching our internet chat room, we've got Sarah and Matt watching our otherworldly chat room. Everybody excited?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
We are going to have a live seance here tonight, and we will get to that momentarily. Nice cut. Cheating ahead there. Good stuff. All right, write to us, info@30oddminutes.com. We want to hear what you have to say, the kind of subjects you want us to cover, what you think of how we're doing so far. It's all about you. It's all about us. So tonight, Ouija boards. Check this out. We've got a great guest to talk about this, Robert Murch. He's a talking board historian, collector, and he first got interested in the subject as a child watching Creature double feature with his grandmother. So sweet. That was a great show, wasn't it? After seeing the 1986 movie Witchboard, not such a great show, an obsession with all things Ouija was born. Today he has over 300 boards in his collection, plus extensive materials on William Fuld. We'll be talking about all that. He's consulted on the subject by authors, television production companies, even Hasbro, and he'll be sharing some of his amazing collection with us tonight live in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Robert Murch.
Yeah. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. This is so cool because we've got so much ground to cover. You know, we're trying to cover the history, a century plus of history.
That's right.
In a very short period of time. So let's start with, when did talking boards, which is the generic term, come around?
Well, talking boards were really an evolution of, or an outpouring of the spiritual movement. So people were using different devices to talk to the other side or the other world, and they were using two main things. There was the planchette, which is what we see now is used with Ouija boards, and back here you can see an early planchette.
Right.
And they were used separately, and they just had a pencil inside, and they would write out your answer. And then there were also these dial plate boards where, like on here, there would be kind of a fixed pointer, and it would just point out the letters. So talking boards came in 1886 as a kind of a crossroads of those two things. And then once they did, they were homemade, they were easy and cheap, and they just took off like wildfire.
And so Ouija is an actual brand name.
Exactly. Ouija is a trademark, which is a little different than you know, calling it talking boards. It's like Kleenex or Xerox. So you might say, I want a Kleenex, and you think you're actually asking for a real brand instead of just the generic term. So it is still owned by Parker Brothers, which is owned by Hasbro today.
Right, right. All right, very cool. Well, check this out. We said we're going to do a live seance tonight. Let's get this thing started. Sarah and Matt, are you ready?
Oh, we're ready.
All right, they're already going.
That's a great job.
Couldn't wait.
Okay, this is really cool. So what questions are you guys going to ask?
Well, we'll start off by asking if anyone
is here. That's okay. Ask if anyone's here. And all right, tell us what you get. Rob is going to be jotting down what comes up. We're going to check in with you throughout the show, so please let us know. But are you feeling anything? It's moving on its own?
I get a cue.
You got a cue?
Yeah, we did get a cue.
All right.
Letter Q.
All right. Okay, we'll check back in with you. That's kind of cool, huh?
It's very cool. Good job.
Because you're more of a historian.
Yes,
you don't necessarily use these things.
Yeah, no, I actually don't. I have, like you said, about 300 different boards, and probably about 500 to 600 total, because I have duplicates and different versions.
Right.
And I don't play them. But the doorway to hell has never opened up in my house, so it's disappointing for some people.
We will get to the doorway to hell. Believe you me, we will absolutely get to the doorway to hell. Okay, so talk about the birth of Ouija, because that's
Sure.
People call these things Ouija boards.
Right.
Like you said, like a Kleenex or a Xerox machine.
Right.
So what started this whole company?
What we know of is that Ouija was the first mass-marketed talking board. So in 1886, you have the first homemade talking boards,
Right.
and in 1890, you have the patent being filed for the first talking board, which meant that there were a bunch of people who decided that they could make money off of this and decided to mass-market it, and that was the birth of the Ouija board. So you have 1890, you have a man named Elijah Bond, who was also a patent attorney, helped him get a patent through, which had already been invented 4 years before.
Right.
And you know, he hooked up with a bunch of people. He sold his patent, which I'm sure he was very sorry for later on. And these people took their money, pulled it together, and made other things other than Ouija boards. But their number one product, the Kennard Novelty Company, was the Ouija board.
Right. So and we have the actual stencil. Bob sent us the picture here. Check this out. This is that's the original stencil for the original board, right?
Yep, and what you notice on that is that there's a cutout at the top where it would say Ouija, and that's because later on the Ouija has tons of drama, and you don't really need a soap opera. It's basically its own soap opera. William Fuld, who took over the company about a year after it started, his brother, who worked with them as well, ended up splitting with William Fuld, and he went on, Isaac Fuld, to make Oriole boards, and he actually took those original stencils, cut out the word Ouija because he couldn't use it, and made Oriole boards.
Right. And this is an example of one of the first boards.
This is an example of one of the first boards. So this was, they started in 1890. This is about 1891, and you can see they've already got the trademark and the registered and patent. So.
And check this out. This is the planchette. I think a lot of us think of the planchette like the one Sarah and Matt are using with the hole in it, and this was just the pointer, right? You'd
exactly.
put this thing on here.
And we think the reason why this changed was because the planchette, which went back to what you just saw a few minutes ago, they wanted to make it different. If they just kind of reinvented the planchette, no one wanted to buy it. So the talking board was trying to make a complete separation. And in reality, people were so used to the way the planchette worked and looked, they quickly moved back to it.
Right. Now, why do you think this thing took off? Why did it become such a big product? I mean, a household name today.
Yeah. Well, I think you know, they sold for $1 and $1.50, and as you can see, they were big, so you could get quite a bit of use out of this. It was, you know, something that just kind of caught on. At the time, people, in order to talk to spirits, they either had to have this gift themselves or contact a medium, and which was really expensive. And you know, for $1.50, all of a sudden, this was brought into your house, and you didn't have to hire anyone. You could just do it, get as many people as you wanted, and talk to different entities or whatever you wanted to. So
back then, were they selling this product as something to talk to the dead, or is it just a game?
It was always sold as a novelty and an amusement. But I think they were very aware that it was done that way, so they walked a fine line. They didn't sell it as something to communicate. They sold it as a fortune-telling device or a divination tool, but not in the sense that you directly spoke to a spirit. And in fact, the early Ouija boards, we have kind of directions where they would say, you would ask the Ouija a question. So you would say, Ouija, tell me about my future. And I think what happened was, as World War I hit, all of a sudden people started talking. Everyone had someone who died in their family and wanted to know what was happening so far away. There was no communications, there were no cell phones. This is the first wireless device right here. Right.
Let's talk about William Fuld, because this is a name that is now synonymous, but not so much at the beginning, right?
Exactly. William Fuld actually worked for the original company, the Kennard Novelty Company. And very quickly, after 1 year of the Kennard Novelty Company working with its original people, they broke up because of money. And
there he is, by the way.
And there is William Fuld with his famous Ouija board right underneath him.
Yep.
He took over the company, was kind of put in charge by 1891, and shortly afterwards he kind of became synonymous. He just pumped out more Ouija boards than any single person in the country, though there have been many knockoffs.
Right, and built this beautiful factory also.
He did. It is. And this factory actually was built in 1917. It was built on the word of the Ouija board. His reports say that the Ouija board told him to prepare for big business, and he did. So he built what was considered a skyscraper in Baltimore in 1919, a 3-story building that is as big as a block.
No kidding. And so but he's sticking by that story. The Ouija board told him to
That's
build
what
it.
he says. The Ouija board told him to do it. And though he claimed, his famous line is that he was no spiritualist, he was a Presbyterian, been one since he was this high.
Right.
So he didn't believe that, and he would say, this is just for fun, it's just to get you to laugh, it's just something that you would enjoy. However, bizarrely and sadly, that factory that you just showed, William Fuld actually died falling off the roof in an accident.
Right. Now, there's, as you call them, Ouijasticians, right?
Absolutely.
Which is great, and we should talk about some of those. One of the stories is that, William Fuld built this device to communicate with his dead wife.
Right, and they're all just, stories and lore. Part of the problem was the people who originally started making Ouija boards and William Fuld were master marketers. And they knew that just by telling people, oh, we saw someone do this and we thought we could make a lot of them and mass market it, it just wasn't a great story. So, over the years, his story changed. What does the word Ouija mean? This is one of the big lores. And actually, we don't know, because there are early stories that say they asked the board what it wanted to be called, and it just spelt out OuiJA.
Right.
And they stuck to that for about 10, 15 years. And then people started saying, as well as the Fulds, that it was actually a combination of two words, we in German and ja in French, and it became the
Vice
yes
versa.
board. Right?
We in French, ja in German. Yeah, sorry. No, I'm here to help.
No, it's okay.
I'm here to help, no problem. All right, great. So let's look at some of the other boards you brought, because
Absolutely.
it wasn't just, the board evolved. I think a
The
lot of
board
people don't
actually-
realize
It did.
just how much.
And this is a really interesting and rare board here.
Yep.
In 1933, the board actually went electric. Boogie, woogie, woogie, woogie. I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah, no. Nice.
So it went electric, and actually you can see on here, there's little nodes here. The
Yep.
planchette had a battery in it, and it would actually light up as it touched these things. The problem was, it was 1933, and not many people could afford the $3.50 that it cost to buy this, and they were all melted down for scrap metal.
Right. That is so cool. And so now you were telling me before the show that this sucker on eBay would fetch.
Yeah, a really beat up version of this actually just went on eBay and sold for about $5,000. So
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
let's move along and let's get this one on eBay.
Nice.
There you go, Rob. You get that one on eBay. Yeah. Start at $5 grand. Let's see how that does. So there's other companies though. It's not just Ouija.
There were many other ones, and again, they couldn't use the name Ouija because it was a trademark, and it was enforced greatly. So this company right here, Hasco, they made a mystic tray. And again, as we're looking in the 1940s, you can see that they wanted to make these things functional. They were trying to, you're hitting World War II.
Right.
They wanted to get the biggest bang for the buck. So what they would do is they had commercials or advertisements where women would come out, with their tray and serve their friends, and then they would actually play the board, and this was called the mystic tray.
Right. So functional and communicate with the dead and have your tea.
And have your tea.
And have your
exactly.
tea. Awesome. Very good. If we could just check in with Sarah and Matt, I'm curious how things are going. How's it going in our paranormal chat room here?
All right, one question. What's your middle
Sure.
name?
Microphone. Sorry.
My middle name is Long, L-O-N-G.
We got a couple questions.
Okay.
Two wrong answers, though.
right.
We asked what my middle name was, Rob, right?
Right.
Which is
Your middle name is Rob?
No,
So
it
it's
isn't.
Rob
That's my
Robert?
first name. We asked who Rob's middle name was, and it came up with Tim. But
Tim.
that's not my middle name or the other Rob's.
Yeah.
All right.
And we do have some questions in the chat room.
Sure.
Actually, this was emailed in earlier. Is it dangerous? You kind of answered a little earlier, but is it dangerous to use a Ouija board with focus on what you are trying to contact? Her friend heard that it can open doors to bad things coming through.
Sure. It goes along to anything. I personally believe anything can be used for good or bad. And the power of the Ouija board is that brand that we were just talking about.
Right.
The fact that it's been over almost 120 years that these have been around. And they're the source of, you mentioned it, your beginning with the paranormal. So we have this idea in our head of how they're supposed to be used, and we all hear the stories.
Yeah.
Everyone has a Ouija board story. And so if you think they're bad, and they scare you, I would say don't use them. But I would have to say that I think if you're afraid to talk to spirits, it doesn't matter whether you're using a Ouija board or another means. It's
Right.
the idea behind it. What gives the Ouija board its power is that it's so popular and it's so part of our pop culture that we all know what's going to happen.
Well,
We think we know.
Here's what I love about the Ouija board too, right? There's only 4 possibilities. I'm pushing it, you're pushing it, somehow collectively we're pushing it, or something else. And that's what keeps me so interested, is what if it's something else? You know, we've got middle names being thrown out over here, and you know, did someone mention a middle name once? Or is it something subconscious? Is it something otherworldly? And what's interesting in the paranormal community, and we'll get into this a little bit, this Ouija board, talking board subject can certainly be a lightning rod, and we will get to that. But before we get too far, we do have to take a very odd break, and with Matt Moniz.
And now, an odd fact with Matthew Moniz. Most lipstick contains fish scales. Isn't that odd? This has been an odd fact with Matthew Moniz.
Fish scales. That's kind of sexy, huh? Kind of sexy. All right, very odd break. All right, so this is what we do here. Glad you came. All right, so at World War II, we see all kinds of competitors to the Ouija board, right? And we have another one?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, people want to cash in. You know, if they can't use the Ouija name, the patent expired in 1908, so anyone could make a talking board after that. And here we have like the Low company, and they made this. At one time, this would have glowed in the dark. I don't think it does anymore. But
let's turn all the lights off. It'd be super. No, I'm just kidding.
and here you can see, you know, again, what happens with these boards, as you see over time, is they start to use things that were popular at the time.
Right.
So you start to, if you look at the different decorations that are on here and the writing, it just reflects typical 1940s.
At what point does the reputation start to get kind of dark, like that these things could be dangerous or whatever?
Sure. Well, I mean, Hollywood had a great hand in changing the Ouija board from just this amusement that everyone played to something dark that you could contact spirits. And, you know, I think it started probably in the 1950s. You would start to see films get a little darker.
Right.
They used the board to tell a story. And then you would see it actually talk to a demon, or someone could be possessed through it. And I think the big one was The Exorcist. That was the clincher.
William Peter Blatty wrote a masterpiece. Before we talk about The Exorcist, I did want to show one other thing. You know, long before The Exorcist in the 1920s, right? Mm-hmm. The Saturday Evening Post.
Yeah.
Norman Rockwell. Can we bring that up, Andy? Look at that. Yeah. Doesn't look very evil, does it?
No, absolutely not. And in fact, this goes along to why were they, you asked before, why were they popular? So every generation kind of rediscovers the Ouija board.
Right.
And what happened here was, you can see in that picture, you know, men and women were not allowed to be alone or touch in public.
Right.
I think times were different. And so the Ouija board allowed them to dim the lights, light candles, put it on their lap, their knees were touching. And if you notice in that picture, you know, she's looking off into the beyond, asking a question.
Let's bring that up again.
And he's, you know, looking in her chest area.
Yeah.
So I think some things never change.
You're right.
You know, it doesn't matter what's 1920s.
Grandma, is it you? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Hey, baby. No, you're right. And Norman Rockwell. So not so evil.
Yep.
Saturday Evening Post.
And very popular. I mean,
1920s,
every major publication in the United States had a Ouija editor who literally just answered questions with the Ouija board based on what people wrote in. So today we have Dear Abby. In the 1920s, they had Dear Ouija.
Write to us at info@30oddminutes.com. We will answer your email with a Ouija board. Sarah and Matt, how's it going? Who's pushing it?
Him.
How would I?
Gotta be him. I don't.
What's it saying? What's going on?
We're asking it a bunch of crap. I just asked it how old I was when I had my first kiss, knowing he doesn't know that. And it said 16, which...
16?
You're Mormon, that's when you have your first kiss.
Really?
Yes.
Is that in the book?
Sure is.
Awesome.
Book of rules, yeah.
Yeah, that's so
I'm
cool.
a little weirded out by that, but I don't know. He could be a good guesser. I don't know.
16, though. I mean, you know, I was 29. What are you going to do? All right, so you've got The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty. Great movie, by the way. Masterpiece. We should bow our heads when we talk about that. Still a scary movie.
Very scary.
And there's a very brief moment in the film where the little girl's in the basement using the Ouija board alone, and with Captain Howdy, right?
You got it.
And then it was used as a device. No one ever claimed it to be so. Used as a device to get the demon into the girl.
Right, exactly. It was just used as a tool by Hollywood to keep the story going into, like, as a portal. It was to
Right.
show this is how it happened. And again, because they're sold in toy stores,
Right.
and you can buy them anywhere, Amazon.com, ToysRUs.com, wherever. And back then, they were just sold in every toy store. That this was to scare people, to show people something so mass marketed you could get anywhere could, destroy your life. And that was. And I'm sure there was a big boom of Ouija sales shortly after that movie.
And then Witchboard, come on, let's face it, that was a terrible movie.
Yeah, but Tawny Katane,
Okay,
she was
fair enough.
pretty good. But
Yeah. So, and so that movie, and I've seen your lecture where you talk about this, covers just about every Ouija-stition, that it comes from ancient Egypt.
Yep.
That, all kinds of things
Yeah.
that get thrown out about this board. And especially now, I hear a lot of paranormal people talk about how these things are dangerous, evil portals. And in fact, we got an email while we were talking, and it was it's right here already. This is how quick our viewers are. Dear 30 Odd Minutes, I'm watching your live show right now and need to tell you that these talking boards are the tool of the devil. Anything can pass through them and attach themselves to you. They're portals to hell, I tell you, signed 80% of the paranormal community. Thank you, 80% of the paranormal community, for writing in. What do you say to that 80% of the paranormal community?
Like I said, whether they're portals, I think if you look at how they're used to communicate with something, whether it's yourself, your
Right.
subconscious, or a ghost or a spirit or a demon. And I think just like you use a telephone and you have a bad conversation with a phone, you don't blame the phone, you blame the person who's talking to you on the other end. It's just a tool or a device. So to me, I don't think these boards are evil at all.
Right. There's nothing inherently evil about cardboard, plastic, or wood.
No.
Sarah and Matt, have either of you been possessed yet?
Not to my knowledge. No.
No possession so far.
The night is young.
The night is still definitely young. All right, very
We
good.
have a question, though.
Okay, sorry, we got to go ahead.
What is the best type of questions to ask it?
Great. That pops into some Ouija-stitions, because people will say you're never supposed to ask, when am I going to die?
Right.
Or who am I going to marry? Or how am I going to die? You should ask it whatever you want. I would not take what comes from them very seriously. And that leads into another Ouija-stition, which is the spirits lie.
Right.
And again, that's just kind of, if you don't get the answer you want, you say, oh, well, they're lying.
Right.
Why not?
We have tonight's lotto numbers if you need them.
Yeah, well,
if
see,
we
that's
could
great.
get that, and also, could you ask when I'm going to die?
Jeff Belanger?
Yeah, I just want to know.
All right.
Yeah, I want to know how much time I got left.
You really want to know?
Hopefully more than about the next 8 minutes, so we can wrap this show up first.
You got to get me home tonight, so.
Try to find out when my TV career died, if you could ask that too, while you're in there. So, all right, this is what really interests me, is that a lot of this stuff comes down to belief and intent.
Yeah.
We've got friends who are witches and spiritualist people and ghost people, and we've had long discussions about this. I was at a conference not long ago, and people are all about this K2 meter, paranormal people, the
Right.
little lights, it's an EMF meter. And you see it on many of the paranormal TV shows where they talk. They'll say, are there any spirits present? And the lights flicker. Come toward the light and make it flicker. I was in a room at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, where it's one of the haunted rooms, and people have this thing out on the bed, and they're saying, talk to us. Are you here? Anyone here? Just come toward the light. And then it flickers. And they say, wow, it's there. And I'm sitting there scratching my head saying, I just don't see how this is any different whatsoever than using a Ouija board. Or even people that do EVP or walk around with digital voice recorders, asking questions and then get the responses back on the recorders. How is this different? Now, the answer that you often get is, well, you're not laying your physical hands on that K2 meter, it's sitting on the bed by itself. But it seems to me you're invoking. If one believes that the spirits come forth when you invoke them, you're invoking the spirits, whether it's through this or through little lights on gadgets or whatever,
Right.
And frowned on religiously anyway. And that's another question I actually had. Early on, did any religious groups stand up against this?
Early on, it wasn't, because two things happened. Early on, the spiritual movement started in the 1800s, and so it was common practice for people to be using these tools, whether it was the Ouija board or a planchette. It was just, again, pop culture.
Right.
So it wasn't, there were always people who didn't believe it, and scientists came out immediately and said, oh, this is a bunch of bull. It's just your mind, you're playing a trick on you.
Right.
And then religious people would say, oh, you are talking to a spirit. I mean, religion actually says these are these can be true. There are spirits you can talk to, and this is dangerous. But they didn't start coming out really against it until the late 1920s, because they started getting, again, so popular that there were some reports, it's not substantiated, but there were more Ouija boards actually sold in the United States than Bibles one year. And so, of course, any competition for churches were just, if you're going to a Ouija board for your answers instead of the good book,
right,
that's probably bad.
So let's talk about more modern times now. There's still competing boards and devices out there.
Absolutely.
Hasbro's latest version is pink.
They did a pink version.
I wish we had a graphic of that. We don't, but you can go online and you can look it up. It's pink. It's obviously marketed toward like teenage girls, right?
Yeah.
One would assume.
Yep, and a little younger actually. It's a Toys R Us exclusive, and it comes with a carrying case, cards that will give you ideas of different questions to ask. And yeah, again, it's marketed towards a younger slumber party population. So they still make the glow in the dark version,
right?
But this was just another. And they're selling well, I hear, so
no kidding.
They must have hit it.
Well, I mean, it reinvents itself. Seems like almost every 10, 15 years, the glow-in-the-dark version, now the pink version. What's next? Is Hasbro going to...
Well, I think that's the question I always ask, because I plot it through history, so I'm very interested to see what's next. I mean, we've already seen it kind of hit the iPhone. There are iPhone apps that you can download at iTunes. And so, how will it incarnate itself in the digital era?
Yeah. All right, let's check back in with Sarah and Matt. We're getting near the end here. What do you think's happening?
I have no idea. It's either him or something's going on. Or maybe just thinking, like the power through your mind is enough to like make a move. I don't know. I'm kind of...
Are you, you seem a little unnerved.
I am a little bit, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. Not in a spooky way, but kind of, it's kind of cool.
Well, it would help us a lot if you were a little spooked out. So do you think you're getting any legitimate messages?
Hard to say. I mean, we asked a viewer question and it won't tell us. It refuses to. It said no twice. So.
Man.
Sorry.
Well, my life insurance company will be happy to know that. All right, I wanted to bring this out. You gave me this years ago. This is Cryptique, and this is a board you developed.
Yeah, actually. We started back in 2000, and it was originally started with Kathy Fold, the granddaughter of William Fold, and I became friends in this research. I kind of found their family, and they found me, actually.
Right.
And so we came up with an idea that, we thought we could do better than the Ouija board. We said, you know what, they're going towards a younger population. We're going to go for all the people that used it, college kids and above. So we went for a darker version, and Cryptique was what we came up with.
From Salem. And I mean, what did you think marketing this? Did you borrow from the Fold playbook?
Yeah, basically, we just went right for it. We called it a spirit board. We couldn't say Ouija, so we called it a spirit board from Salem, Massachusetts.
Right.
And we just incorporated artwork from the Salem graveyards, and we just went much darker.
Right, and that's what's so cool about this. It will continue to evolve. Yeah. I think it's so interesting that so many of the paranormal shows are now talking to gadgets and devices, which, as we
very reminiscent.
We just said, is very very similar to using a Ouija board. Maybe they'll make a comeback. Kind of.
I hope they do. I would love to see that.
And well, I'm sure Hasbro's not telling us what kind of sales numbers, but is it true that it outsold Monopoly at one point?
It did. They did release that in 1967.
Right.
They bought it in 1966 from the Fold children, and in 1967 it was the only year it outsold Monopoly.
That is incredible.
So the #1 selling board.
Really, really amazing. It's such a rich history. It's intertwined, of course, with the spiritualist movement, which began in 1848. It's part of ghost hunting today. We still talk about it, around it. We're afraid of it, and it's just such a fascinating subject. Murch, thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing your incredible collection.
Thanks for having me.
And not so dangerous. All right. Well, until next time, everybody, please stay on. See you next time. Hey man, Thanks for coming, man. Great
thanks
show.
for having me.
No, that was awesome. And so, I mean, but really, you don't think these things are dangerous at all?
No, I don't think these are dangerous at all.
Huh, it's
I don't think
interesting.
anything can happen.
Yeah, I think they're a little dangerous. Now what do you think?